Hi Robin, thank you for joining myself and Rob on the Hart Square Podcast today. It's really great to have you with us. As you know, we're going to have a bit of a chat around project success and how to deliver successful projects. But before we get into that topic, I wondered if you could do a bit of an intro and tell us a bit about yourself, your role, and Donofy.
Sure. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for asking. Nice to be here. So yes, I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Donofy. So we set up in 2015 to build specific CRM or specialist CRM for nonprofits, particularly nonprofits who fundraise. So Donofy is all about managing donors and managing fundraising in charitable organizations. We launched Donofy in 2015. It's designed so that it's out of the box doing what people need it to do. So we kind of minimize perhaps the amount of professional services that are required typically in a CRM project by saying it's in the product. One of the key things about Donofy is it's integrated with all of the platforms that charities use these days. And we're working with about 700 organizations across the UK and in Scandinavia. And they range in size from quite small, £250,000 turnover maybe, up to £50 million plus turnover organizations. So quite a broad range of organizations that use Donofy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robin. And I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a bit about project success, and you may be too humble to mention it, but prior to 2015, of course, you had a lot of experience. You worked in the sector, in the non-profit sector for a lot longer than that. I think it's fair to say. Absolutely,
yeah. So my experience goes back a long while. I've had a long and well, not so varied career in CRM. So
illustrious.
Yeah, but we didn't call it CRM in those days. We called them donor databases or membership.
Yeah, the database, wasn't it?
Yeah, and technology changed, and really the idea behind Donofy is that it takes advantage of the cloud and all the cloud now has to offer with ease of use, affordability and integration, all that stuff. So that's the difference, I guess, is that the technology beneath it all has changed, but the ideas and some of the intentions are still the same.
Absolutely. It was interesting, though, that even in your introduction, you mentioned about very specifically Donofy being designed to minimize that kind of professional services component of an implementation, which I guess, in terms of our theme for around project success, was that partly about trying to build consistency and clear expectations of what would be achieved when? Was that kind of one of the driving factors for the design even of Donofy?
Yeah, it was certainly part of the philosophy of how we designed Donofy, because in our previous lives with the old Progress CRM and that kind of world, we found ourselves doing the same kind of work time and time again for different clients. So whether it was integrating Just Giving or whether it was integrating with the website, whatever it would be, the client would be spending money on professional services where the work could be perhaps more standardized and put into the product and productized, so that you were flicking switches rather than writing code to make the whole thing work together. So the integration piece was really a key part of Donofy, because we thought, well, many organizations out there are using familiar tools like MailChimp, Just Giving, Facebook Giving, Stripe, GoCardless, all those kind of payment services. Why reinvent the wheel every time it's implemented? Why not make them standard? So that kind of de-risks the process for the customer, because though professional services can be a wonderful thing, they can also be a risky thing as well.
Yeah. Would it also be fair to say that helps you? So because you've effectively kind of pre-built those integrations, so you know what your how you're going to make all those connections. So it makes the implementation more predictable. Is that fair as well?
I mean, it makes it shorter, which makes it more predictable.
Okay.
And less expensive. So not that we are completely devoid of professional services. There's always data to migrate. There's always a custom integration to be written with something that maybe isn't on our integration map already. And any amount of stuff that involves human beings requires professional services as well, whether it's training, project management. But yes, generally speaking, the professional services element is vastly minimized because of the productized nature of it.
Yeah, interesting. And is there also something there in terms of when we're thinking about the various different factors that can kind of throw a project out or whatever, what you're also enabling clients to do is to continue using tools that they're familiar with. You mentioned MailChimp and others, Stripe, etc. down, so they can retain those products or specialist products that they're already using potentially, and focus therefore. So when you come to the people side, they can focus more on the role of CRM within that mix. Is that part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes there is an education piece to do, because it may be that for some reason MailChimp has been their kind of de facto CRM until they decide they need a CRM, and MailChimp then becomes one of the players around the CRM. So there is the comfort in retaining the tools that they know and love, but integrating with them. And I suppose it's helping people understand the role of the CRM then in the technology landscape, which is going to be about a single view of what someone means to you all the time, but not necessarily doing all the jobs that those satellite systems do. So we integrate with Eventbrite, for example. Eventbrite is going to be a bigger and more broad event management system than perhaps any event module that we might build into Donofy. So we integrate with that, so that you get the information in the CRM about events people have attended and that kind of behavioral history, which can then inform your marketing. So that's the role of the CRM, is to be that repository for enough information to give really good customer service to your donors, your supporters, but then identify them and segment them and market to them appropriately from there. But we don't get involved, for example, in e-commerce. So Shopify or WooCommerce are out there doing what they do brilliantly, and we would integrate rather than rebuild.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, like you said, from a technical perspective, but also from that, you mentioned, the people side of projects, which is kind of the most important part of it, really, isn't it? Or we try to make it the most important part. So I guess that upfront education, piece to people to show, like you say, the role of the CRM, how that fits, and then to be able to explain to them kind of what they're in for in terms of the implementation project, what's required of them, their role in the project. Is that then something that you specifically concentrate on kind of when you're initiating the implementation, I guess?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everyone's different, and sometimes we find ourselves doing that education piece in the pre-sales, because people are coming with a certain set of assumptions, and we're having to sort of help them think through those things. Some people have done it before somewhere else, and they have a method, and they want to bring that to us, which sometimes that's fine as well. But yeah, people are the interesting part of any project, so it's always fun. I think the key thing is if people have, if everyone has the right attitude in it to being flexible and being supportive of the project. I guess it's hardest when invited into a project where the customer says, do this to us, put this CRM system into us and make us more efficient somehow. We don't really want to understand how, but so they're the challenging ones, but there aren't too many of them. So yeah, we gently try to nudge them in the right direction of getting the orientation for the project right before we start.
Yeah, like you say, you don't want it to be just something like big ta-da, here's your new system. They're not really then bought into it, do they? Are they? So is that, I suppose, an element of the success then actually is kind of aligning expectations up front? Would that be part of that then, would you say? Making sure we're on the same page and seeking to achieve the same thing?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think there's a tendency, you can understand it from a customer point of view. They're embarking on a project that they want to transform their business. And there's a certain set of assumptions that go with that, like we're going to get some software, we're going to get some people to help us use it, and at the end of that, it's going to be great. But actually, what we try to do is reset the expectation to say, well, what's the minimum viable project, minimum viable sort of line to get across to say that we've now implemented this, we're doing all the stuff we used to do on the old system in here, but a bit differently, and there's more things to do after that. So we try to encourage the sense of the go live as being not so much the finish line, but actually more of a start line, because life with the CRM and improving it and really getting some of the benefits will come once you've done the hygiene stuff and you've gone live on the stuff that you needed to do just to function as an organization. So yeah, we will try to, if it's that size of project, then that's the sort of attitude and the kind of expectation setting that we'd like to take, and we'll do that often in what you might call some sort of chemistry meeting with a client, where you would make sure that you're all on the same page and that you feel like you can do business together.
Mm-hmm.
We in the selection process of selecting a CRM, obviously the customer has to select the right CRM, but we have to select the right customer as well. Because if we can't find a way forward with that customer, or that customer maybe has a completely different culture to us, then we may not be the best provider for that. And we have been in that situation where we've had to say to the customer before, well, look, it's great that you want to do CRM, but maybe it's not us that you need, because this is how we do it and this is how we think we can work with you. So yeah, it's all down to people.
That's really interesting. So that organizational culture, like you say, the alignment of cultures between how you operate and how you see CRM and technology in their world has to match what the client, what the customer, how they perceive it as well.
Yeah, we don't expect everyone to be like us and be like them, but we have to better work together and rub along together and get the job done. So yeah, we will look out for good signs as well as the odd red flag in that in those initial chats that we would have. But by and large, we're a pretty easygoing bunch, I think, and we would be able to find a way. I think that also plays into one of the other things that as a business we're set up to do, which is that we implement our own software, but it's not always us that implements it. We have a partner network of accredited partners who are certified and trained to implement Donofy for clients. So it may be that a particular client we feel would work best with us or with partner A, B, or C, whoever that may be. And that relationship is important. So sometimes we have that flexibility to say which partner is the most appropriate partner, both in terms of scale for this project or expertise, or even just the culture, the kind of organization they are. Because we find that the skills required to develop software and support it are very different to the skills required to implement it.
Okay.
It's quite a broad set of skills, really, if you think about it. You have to be, you have to have a different skill set really to do the implementation. So that's why we have a partner network that brings the strengths of their experience into implementing Donofy for our clients. Yeah,
that's good actually, isn't it, to have that, like you say, the options to have variable different implementation partner experiences to bring into play, so that you can help to, because you've obviously got the confidence that you've got great technology, we know that, and that the technology can achieve what the client's looking for. Your point about then organizational culture means that you can, as you say, you can pick the most appropriate or the most aligned of your partners to work with any given client, which again must improve the opportunity for you to succeed in the implementation.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just the culture, it's not just the way the partner goes about their business, it may be their skill set, their technical capabilities. So we've had projects where as a supplier we can front the whole thing, but we've brought several partners or multiple partners in at different times to cover different skills. So for example, we have one partner who is particularly well versed in major donor fundraising and trust fundraising. So it's particular disciplines within the fundraising world, and helping them use and make sense of the CRM in that particular area is great for that part of that project, but it's a bigger project than that. So we'll have other people doing other pieces. So sometimes we do, sometimes we bring the partner network together and they're happy to collaborate with one another. And there's no kind of, from our point of view, we have no vested interest in that. It's just the right person for the right job.
Yeah. Good to be able to call on those different experiences and expertises though, isn't it? Which, if I'm right, that's not the whole partner network as such, but again, that was part of the ethos when you founded Donofy, wasn't it? It's a very collaborative piece of work to pull the proposition together. Is that fair? I mean, you had charities and other tech partners involved, didn't you?
Definitely, yeah. We had a little panel, a sort of reference panel when we started building Donofy to help give us some guidance about what it was turning out like, whether it was looking good or looking bad, or whether we should integrate with this or that. And that was a really good year. It's that glorious time before we had any customers to answer to, where we could actually develop software and put a lot of time and effort into that, which is great. And then obviously customers come along and help you shape it even more. So that was the initial, you're right, that's the initial kind of genesis of Donofy, was to get that broad input into it. And yeah, we continue to do that today. It's one of our values as a company, is the value is build it together. So we try to build Donofy with our customers and others' input. And the partner thing was a conscious decision, because we knew that we'd only ever be able to grow as quickly as our professional services team allowed if it was all in-house. Okay. So a partner network is quite a good way for us to be able to scale quite quickly, because we can add more partners at another time. So that was the business rationale from our point of view, which very happy we took.
Yeah, definitely. And that ongoing collaboration with clients, is that something that you see actually, on our core topic around ensuring the success of the project, so the implementation project in this piece? Do you get the sense that your clients, because they know you've obviously described that ongoing relationship with them, and then being able to influence the product down the line, do you think that helps to kind of build those foundations of a really successful partnership, rather than some kind of bang heads client supplier thing going on?
It did, yeah. We had a little project a couple of years ago now to get some insights from our customer base as to what they liked about being a Donofy customer, what they didn't like about it. And one of the things they did like about it was that they sensed they were on a bit of a journey with the product themselves. So they had some skin in the game, for want of a better expression, with the product. They were a customer, so they're paying, and part of that subscription that they pay for a cloud product like Donofy is folded back into improving the product. I won't pretend that that's an easy balance to strike all the time, because you've always got far more suggestions than you've got time as a software business. Yeah. And, that's probably the tale of every software company that's ever been, that's had a customer, is that you get more ideas than you've got scope to do. So we do have to balance what comes in from our customer base as ideas versus our own ideas, and what the broader kind of industry is telling us and what technology trends are telling us. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but it enables us to build in the end a product which is what our customers want and is fit for the future.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because about the technology itself, as you said earlier, is a specialist CRM for fundraisers. It has those core components for the, if you like, the not tangential systems, but that you've got that ecosystem that you sit in the middle of and integrate with. But you need to be able to kind of keep moving that forward, don't you? And I think potentially, kind of, if technology gets too complex, again, that adds risk to a project. When we're back to kind of the idea around standardization and predictability. So is that something that you help to kind of mitigate against, do you think, by the way in which you evolve your product?
Yeah, I mean, another one of our values as a company is to add simplicity. So we always, as we develop the product, we try not to make it more complicated by adding more things to it. We try to make it simpler by adding more things to it. We borrowed that, I think it's Lotus cars.
Really?
Their strap line was something like add lightness or something to their cars. So anytime they develop the car, it's lighter and faster. So anyway, hopefully they won't be after us for that copyright on that particular one. But adding simplicity,
battery, right?
we try to add simplicity as we develop the product. We don't always succeed, but it has to look, if you're seeing it for the first time, like it's a fresh, easy to use product, rather than something that's had lots of things bolted onto it over time. So that's the general idea.
Okay, nice. What else we're gonna? Sorry, there was something kind of not changing tack as such, but there is kind of one of those unsaid challenges that come with all the projects. So you've mentioned it in passing, but we haven't really touched on a lot, which is around data, because that's again something we've talked about the relationship that you build, we talked about the standardization of the technology, and then we both know we all know well enough that you chuck data at a system and it can do all kinds of weird and wonderful things straight out. So is that one of those areas where you give particular focus maybe, or do anything specific to try and minimize the impact of it on your success?
I think it depends again on the client. So it probably should be said that about half of our clients implement themselves onto Donofy. So there's no professional services at all on about half of our clients. We have getting started guides, data migration guides, flicking the switch to switch on integrations to all the standard tools, and that's all kind of self-serve. And organizations on a budget, on a strict budget or no budget, can implement Donofy themselves and do that. And of course, they'll make their own decision about the data they want to bring in and whether its quality makes that a good idea or not, will be down to them. But we all know that organizations that have perhaps been around for a while and have got systems they're moving from, that's not just a fresh start, they're going to have historical data. Some of it would have been coded differently over different eras within their system. And you can almost read the history through the data of the who's looked after it. So yeah, we do get into those discussions about what do you want imported, and what do you really want imported, and what do you really need to be imported, so that it makes sense. Because if you've got unreliable data, as we all know, you can't make decisions on that, and it just becomes a thing that you lug around. One thing that actually focuses people's minds is that Donofy's pricing model is volume based. So people don't really want to bring a ton of supporters into their database that have not given for 17 years, because they'll pay for them in Donofy. So our pricing model is very much volume based, on the basis that if you've got good data and you're growing as an organization, you'll succeed, and your subscription to Donofy only rises when your data grows in volume. So that's quite a useful kind of little tool for people to remind themselves about, what do I really need in here, and do I really need that historic data that just because it's there. And you can always keep it offline if you want to.
Yeah, true. Good way to motivate people there, like you say.
Yeah.
Cool. It's really interesting, actually. And one thing I know you sort of briefly mentioned before was kind of around trends in the sector, and I was just wondering if you are aware of, or you'd like see any trends that are in the non-profit sector at the moment, whether that's technology or just the way projects are being delivered. If you see any around, really.
Well, I suppose one trend that has been ever present in the last 7 years since we started Donofy is that of integration. And integration is not going to stop being a trend. I don't know what defines a trend. Can something be an old trend? But anyway, integration, there's always a shopping list of things to integrate with, because people will pick up the new online donation tool, whether it's TikTok or something else. They'll say, we want to, any donations that come from that place, we want to end up in Donofy, in the CRM. So there's always integrations. I have to say, we're not seeing a massive demand for crypto. There's a lot of talk about it, or there was, and it hasn't really been something that's kind of made it to the top of anyone's list. I think we already integrate with Stripe, who are adding a crypto element to their offering anyway. So it may be that through that we will naturally be supporting crypto donations. But yeah, that hasn't really been a big driver. I think one of the things that is coming through gently, and I think it possibly scares some people, but it's the notion of artificial intelligence, or AI, coming through into the CRM world, into fundraising as well. We're seeing that happening with machine learning, the machine learning aspect of AI, where looking for patterns in data that you might not, as a human, have asked it to show you. So, what are the most likely people to respond to an upgrade appeal? Or what are the most likely people to respond to a legacy ask? And it may not be the people that, as a fundraiser, that you think you should target, but your system and your machine learning is telling you that actually these are the best 312 people to ask for that thing. So we have done a bit of work with machine learning. We've got a couple of pilot projects running with a few clients to test the machine learning segmentation versus a human segmentation, which is going to be quite an interesting outcome, I think. So yeah, we're in the middle of that at the moment. So watch this space.
Yeah, cool. That's really interesting, actually, because AI and machine learning is a topic we've picked up previously in conferences we've run previously. So it's interesting to see how much time it's taken for that to kind of come into the sector and be adopted. It seems like it's a slow adoption. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, right. It is. And I think there's sometimes a bit of fear around the term AI. People think of robots taking over their lives and you know, I guess there's a wider social implication about decisions being made for us by machines. So, you know, not to belittle that, but yeah, I think maybe its time has come. It's just finding an application for it, a use case which people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it, Robin? It's, you know, as you say, Ellie, we've been talking about AI and machine learning for a long time, but then it's finding kind of real world examples where it can add value. And actually on your point about the fear, Robin, I completely agree. I think it's about people understanding that they can work alongside the machine, however you want to describe it, the robot, whatever. It's about harnessing the power, but combining what the machine can do with what we can do, because it's about scale as much as anything, isn't it? The ability for a computer to mine so much data to derive those patterns that we could do it. It would just take us, you know, 2.5 lifetimes to achieve what they can do in an hour.
Absolutely. Yeah. The machines are here to stay.
They are.
But just conscious of time there, and I think that's a good point to end on. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today, Robin. It was really great to have you share your thoughts about, you know, how to deliver successful projects with us. So yeah, thanks again.
Great stuff. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Robin. Enjoyed that.
Okay.